We have a fantastic long-form deep dive for you today on conspiracy theories. And what makes this extra special is that it's a crossover episode with Natan's Notes, the relatively new YouTube channel headed up by former TV director on The David Pakman Show and my little brother, Natan Pakman. He is voicing over and walking us through conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking on today's deep dive. Let's get right into it.
How do conspiracy theories work? Conspiracy theories and conspiratorial thinking are around us all the time, from eccentric friends who question whether we landed on the moon, to the fact that a majority of Americans believe that Lee Harvey Oswald wasn't the only person involved in the JFK assassination. Let's take a look at how conspiracy theories work. Before we begin, we should clarify the difference between a conspiracy theory and a conspiracy. A conspiracy is a fact about the world, a situation for which there's good evidence that two or more people worked together, conspired, to commit an illegal or immoral act. A conspiracy theory, on the other hand, is an allegation or claim that an event was caused by a conspiracy. A conspiracy is something that's known as a result of investigating the causes of an event. A conspiracy theory, on the other hand, is the result of rejecting the evidence that explains an event. Actual conspiracies include the plot of Roman senators to assassinate Julius Caesar, the 1953 Iranian coup that overthrew the democratically elected prime minister, orchestrated by the US and the UK, the Watergate break-in, and any time two or more people get together to rob a bank. Let's look at 5 common characteristics of conspiracy theories. First, the presupposition that nothing ever happens by accident, that chaos or randomness does not and cannot explain significant world and historical events. Most conspiracy theorists would accept that any one of us could get hit by a car while crossing a street due to completely accidental or random causes, like the driver having the sun in their eyes for 3 straight seconds right as you cross the street in front of him. But the conspiratorial worldview is that events of major significance, at least significance to humans, never occur this way. More on why this is later. Second, the idea of a small group of people in power pulling the puppet strings behind the scenes. A good example of this, I think, is the old anti-Semitic canard of Jewish control. The core here is that there's a cabal of Jews controlling events in secret for their own benefit. So it's been said that Jews controlled the media, the Federal Reserve, Wall Street, Hollywood, that they were behind historical wars and revolutions, and even that they seek world domination. The most influential expression of these ideas is the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. The text was a hoax plagiarized from earlier sources, first published in Russia in 1903 and purported to be the minutes of a meeting of Jewish leaders at the end of the 19th century conspiring together to take over the world. It's been debunked many times, but its popularity and influence continues to be significant. Henry Ford funded the printing of 500,000 copies that were distributed in the US in the 1920s, and it was cited in Hitler's Mein Kampf and in Nazi propaganda. More recently, it was referenced in Hamas's charter and continues to be read in multiple languages. And this is a feature of most conspiracy theories, that a small and powerful group, supposedly the Jews in this particular case, have orchestrated a big, nefarious scheme behind closed doors. A third common trait of conspiracy theories is that official stories are considered to be propaganda used by those in power to brainwash most of the general public. Think about, for example, the Warren Commission report, an 888-page document submitted to President Lyndon Johnson in September 1964, concluding that Lee Harvey Oswald acted entirely alone in the assassination of JFK. Attacking the Warren Commission and its report is a key feature of JFK assassination conspiracy theories. One of the main points is the single bullet theory, often ridiculed and called the, quote, magic bullet theory, which the report used to explain how one of the 3 bullets fired by Oswald hit Kennedy's neck and Texas Governor John Connally's chest, wrist, and thigh. The supposed implausibility of the same bullet behaving this way is commonly cited and was even the focus of a key scene in Oliver Stone's JFK and a parody scene in an episode of Seinfeld. Now, to any of you wondering whether only magic could explain what this bullet did, it's been modeled and analyzed many times and found to be completely consistent with the laws of physics. Fourth, skepticism. Now, this is actually pretty interesting. Conspiracy theories often appeal to our usual sense of skepticism, but take it to an irrational extreme. They take advantage of the fact that it's easy to sow doubt in us simply by asking questions that appear to expose inconsistencies in official accounts of events. Consider NASA's footage of the Apollo 11 moon landing. Conspiracists love to point out the appearance of a waving American flag as the pole is being fixed into position by the astronauts. They say, there's no wind on the moon, so how could the flag possibly wave? Now, this is a perfectly reasonable question, and of course, there's also a perfectly reasonable answer. While the astronauts placed the flag on the ground, it vibrated the flagpole and flag, and the inertia in the vacuum of space led to some movement of the flag that looked to us like waving. Also, the astronauts accidentally bent the horizontal rods holding the flag in place several times, which created the appearance of a rippling flag in the still photographs. Lastly, and very importantly, is the unfalsifiability of conspiracy theories. If you disprove any specific point or argument made by conspiracy theorists, they either claim that your, quote, evidence is fake and or part of the official propaganda story, or they accept it and immediately move on to the next point. So to take the moon landing example, if you explain why the flag appeared to be waving, a conspiracist might say, yeah, sure, but what about the fact that there's no blast crater when the lunar module landed? Or if you point to an aspect of the photos that disproves their point, they answer, those images were doctored by NASA. In this way, confirmation bias causes conspiracy theorists to take any evidence you throw at them, any evidence they encounter, even evidence which contradicts their theories, and incorporate it as further proof of their conclusion. So why is it that some people buy into conspiracy theories? We live in a world that is in many ways full of complexity and chaos. Terrible things happen for no good reason, scientific explanations can seem completely counterintuitive, and an event that changes history can occur by complete accident. It's difficult for a lot of people to accept that a lot of what happens in the world is by coincidence or through causes outside of our control. Some of these people turn to conspiracy theories because they provide reassurance that what's happening in their lives or the things that we see on the news have identifiable and comprehensible causes. There's been a lot of research, especially over the past 15 years, aimed at understanding the psychology of those who believe in conspiracy theories. Conspiratorial belief, it turns out, correlates with certain personality traits such as intellectual curiosity, a strong imagination, cynicism toward politics, and distrust of authority. Psychological studies have found that belief in conspiracy theories also tends to correlate with belief in creationism, the paranormal, superstitions, and New Age beliefs. Conspiracism has also been tied to a tendency to see patterns where there are none. A 2018 study by psychologist Joshua Hart gave cognitive tests to over 1,200 American adults and also asked them questions about what they thought about statements like, quote, the power held by heads of state is second to that of small unknown groups who really control world politics, and, quote, groups of scientists manipulate, fabricate, or suppress evidence in order to deceive the public. Those who agreed with the conspiratorial statements were much more likely to identify non-existent patterns when shown randomized visual images, and they were more likely to interpret nonsensical statements as profound. So on portions of the test that had nothing to do with politics or conspiracies, the conspiracists tended to attribute meaning and intention where non-conspiracists did not. Some researchers have also suggested that conspiratorial thinkers suffer from what's known as proportionality bias. In other words, when someone has trouble believing that an event with large-scale consequences can have a small-scale cause. For example, that a lone gunman would assassinate JFK, that someone as famous as Princess Diana could have been killed by a simple car accident, or that a mere group of 19 terrorists could create the devastation of 9/11. Assuming that these were all high-level government conspiracies would maintain the proportionality between the causes and the consequences, and it's an understandable impulse. But of course, significant events like these often do have spontaneous, small-scale causes. Believing in conspiracy theories also provides an insider's sense of being in the know. Conspiracy theorists and their followers form groups that know, quote, what really happened and how things really are. Just think of all the conspiracy theorists who go around calling people shills or sheep. So although we can understand and maybe even empathize with what drives people to believe in conspiracy theories, it would be a mistake to discount the dangerous real-life consequences of believing in them. Belief in conspiracy theories has led to physical violence and terrorism, such as the 1995 Oklahoma City bombing. Many people who subscribe to conspiracy theories have a misplaced distrust or animosity toward institutions that in reality are beneficial to society. And in some cases, they can even develop a hatred toward entire groups of people. Conspiracy theories about vaccines and autism have led people to not vaccinate their children against deadly diseases. And surveys have shown that people who believe climate change to be a hoax are far less willing to reduce their carbon footprint. The more complex a problem is, the more complex the solution tends to be. So some people find comfort in falsely asserting problems to be more simple than they actually are, because it would mean that the solution is simple. If the MMR vaccine causes autism and the medical community is ignorant about it, then the solution is simple. Don't trust the medical community and don't use vaccines. It's much less palatable to consider that autism has complicated genetic causes that aren't yet fully understood, leaving us for the time being with no easy answers. Of course, you might be watching and thinking to yourself, sometimes powerful people do conspire. Sometimes the public is being lied to by the powers that be. Well, there's a difference between a healthy skepticism and habitually getting caught up in conspiracy theories. One method you might use to tell the difference is to consider how implausible it would be for a huge number of conspirators to keep everything a secret. Benjamin Franklin once wrote, quote, "3 may keep a secret if 2 of them are dead." Physicist Robert David Grimes has developed a statistically rigorous formula to determine how long it would take for a conspiracy to be exposed based on the number of people that must have been involved. Basically, the more people involved in the conspiracy, the faster a leak would have to emerge. Grimes calculated that the supposed moon landing hoax would require the involvement of about 411,000 people and would be exposed within 3.68 years. A hoax about man-made global warming would involve about 405,000 people and would be exposed within 3.7 years. So yes, some conspiracies are real, but we often find out about them through people leaking information. And we need to be reasonable about how improbable it would be for there to be no leaks whatsoever over an extended period of time from a supposed conspiracy that involves a great number of people. Another method for finding the line between rational skepticism and misguided conspiracism is to employ a critical thinking principle known as Occam's razor. Occam's razor essentially suggests that all things being equal, we should favor explanations that require the fewest assumptions. If we already have a reasonable explanation for why something happened, there's no need to invoke additional speculation. If your dog has a history of digging through your garbage and you come home and find your trash can flipped over, it's unreasonable to start hypothesizing about who broke into your house to tip over your trash can, barring some specific evidence to point you in that direction. We can also identify improbable conspiracy theories by recognizing when a conspiracy theorist is frequently and fallaciously appealing to vagueness. They try to explain something complex by giving reasons that are even more complex and nebulous, leaving endlessly branching explanations without ever arriving at hard facts or evidence. Skepticism deals with facts, proving facts, describing facts, questioning facts, while conspiracy theories are generally more concerned with attributing motives and analyzing an event in terms of its meaning and significance, and how it fits into a larger narrative. As humans, looking for patterns is in our very nature. But it's also possible to overdo it and connect dots that have no business being connected. And like I talked about, there are studies pointing to the notion that there might even be broader personality traits at play that cause people to go down this road. We have to acknowledge that we live in an unpredictable world filled with randomness, coincidences, and accidents that can have hugely profound consequences. And jumping to unsubstantiated conclusions about conspiracies is almost never going to get us closer to understanding how things really work or solving our problems.